The sound of Mom's favorite ceramic mug shattering across the kitchen tiles was the only thing that broke the silence. I, Felicity Thompson, pulled back from Zariah's lips, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard I could barely breathe. There she stood in the doorway, my mother, eyes wide with something far worse than anger. Pure, shattered disbelief. The tray of fresh chocolate chip cookies she had been carrying slipped from her hands and joined the mug in pieces on the floor. "Felicity," she whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. "What in God's name are you doing?" Zariah's hand stayed locked in mine, warm and steady, the only solid thing in a room that suddenly felt like it was collapsing. I opened my mouth but nothing came out. 10 years of carefully constructed lies. Of pretending I was the perfect daughter, the straight-A student, the girl who would marry a nice boy and give her grandkids. Every single brick of that wall was crumbling in the space of one heartbeat. Mom's gaze shifted to Zariah, then back to me, and her expression hardened into something cold and final. "Both of you. Out. Right now. I will not have this filth under my roof." The word filth landed like a slap. This was the same woman who had baked those cookies for my soccer games, who had cried happy tears when I got into Ohio State, who still called me her sunshine girl. Yet here she was, pointing at the back door like we were strangers. Zariah squeezed my fingers once, gentle, reassuring, before letting go to grab our coats from the hooks. I followed her numbly, the scent of vanilla and melted chocolate now sickening instead of comforting. As the screen door slammed behind us, and we stepped into the crisp October evening of our quiet Columbus suburb, my mind betrayed me. It dragged me back 10 years to the exact same kitchen. Only then I had been the one doing the slamming. I had stood in this very spot, phone pressed to my ear, listening to Mom's trembling voice on the other end. "I found the letters, Felicity. The ones from that girl. Your father's heart can't take this. The church, our friends. Think about what this would do to us." I had cried that night until my eyes swelled shut, then drove to the park where Zariah waited under the old oak tree. I told her it was over, that I couldn't be that person, that she deserved someone who wasn't ashamed. The look on her face that day still haunted me. Hurt so deep it looked like betrayal. She had simply nodded, turned, and walked away without another word. Now 10 years later, here we were again, only this time I wasn't the one walking away. Zariah's beat-up Honda waited at the curb. She opened the passenger door for me without speaking, the way she always did, like muscle memory from a life we never got to live. I slid inside, the leather cold against my back. "Where are we going?" I asked, voice small. "My apartment," she answered, starting the engine. "For tonight at least." Her profile in the dashboard light was the same beautiful face I had fallen for in that freshman literature class. Strong jaw, kind eyes, the tiny scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. But tonight those eyes held something new. Exhaustion mixed with a quiet fury I wasn't sure was aimed at Mom or at me. We drove in silence for 3 blocks before my phone started exploding. First Dad missed call. Then my older sister Lauren, 3 texts in a row. Then the family group chat lighting up like a Christmas tree. I didn't open any of them. I already knew what they would say. Mom had probably already dialed everyone. Voice shaking with righteous pain. "Your sister is well, you know." The same tone she used when the neighbor's dog dug up her roses. Zariah's hand found mine again on the console. "You don't have to read those tonight." "I know. But I did anyway." The first message from Lauren was short and brutal. "Mom's crying. What the hell, Felicity? After everything she's done for you." I closed my eyes and leaned my head against the window. The streetlights blurred past like accusations. Somewhere in the back of my mind a clock was ticking. Not the kitchen clock, but the one that had been counting down since the day I let Zariah go. 10 years. 10 years of dates with men who never felt right, of forcing smiles at family dinners, of waking up at 3 a.m. with her name on my tongue. And for what? So Mom could keep her perfect Christmas card image? We pulled into the parking lot of Zariah's building on the east side. The complex was nothing fancy, red brick, 2 stories, the kind of place recent college grads and young professionals could afford. She had moved back to Columbus 6 months ago after landing a graphic design job at the same firm where I worked as a copywriter. We had run into each other at a coffee shop downtown, both reaching for the last oat milk latte. One awkward laugh turned into 2 hours of catching up, then 3 secret dinners, then stolen kisses in my car after work. I had told myself it was different this time, no one had to know. I was 28, not 18. I could handle it. Clearly I couldn't. Inside her apartment the lights were warm and low. Zariah dropped her keys on the counter and turned to me. You want tea? Or something stronger? Tea, I whispered. Please. While the kettle heated she stood behind me, arms sliding around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. We'll figure this out, Flick. Together this time. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the image of Mom's face kept flashing disgust, disappointment, and something else I couldn't name yet. Something that felt like fear. The kettle whistled. Zariah poured 2 mugs and we sat on her worn couch, knees touching. I stared into the steam and let the first tear fall. I should have fought for us back then. Yeah, she said quietly, no anger in her voice, just truth. You should have. That was when the first text from Mom arrived. Not a call text because she couldn't bear to hear my voice. You have until tomorrow night to come home alone and apologize. If you choose her, don't ever come back. I mean it, Felicity. The family will know exactly why. I read it twice. Then I set the phone face down on the coffee table and looked at Zariah. She's giving me an ultimatum. Zariah's mouth tightened. She already did. 10 years ago. And just like that the past and present slammed together so hard I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The next morning the sun came through Zariah's blinds in thin gold stripes across the bed. I woke with her arm draped over my waist, her breathing slow and even against my neck. For 3 full seconds I let myself pretend none of yesterday had happened. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Dad. Your mother is beside herself. Call me when you can. Love you. The love you felt like a lifeline and a noose at the same time. Zariah stirred. Morning, she murmured, voice husky with sleep. She kissed the spot just below my ear, and I melted into her for another moment before reality crashed back. I have to go to work, I said, sitting up. We both do. She nodded, already reaching for her laptop bag. I'll drop you at your car first. The drive back to my parents' house was only 12 minutes, but it felt like crossing an ocean. My blue Civic sat exactly where I'd left it, innocent and unaware. I kissed Zariah quickly, too quickly before climbing out. Text me when you get to the office? Always. I watched her drive away, then forced myself inside. The house smelled like coffee and tension. Mom was at the kitchen table, eyes red-rimmed, clutching a mug that wasn't the one she'd dropped yesterday. She didn't look up. Sit. I sat. You have until tonight, she said flatly. One chance to make this right. Tell me it was a mistake. Tell me you'll see Pastor Harris for counseling. Tell me you'll delete her number and never speak to her again. Then we can pretend this never happened. I stared at the tiny crack in the tile where the mug had shattered. I can't do that, Mom. Her head snapped up. You can and you will. Do you have any idea what this will do to your father's blood pressure? To Lauren's marriage? To the church prayer group? People will talk, Felicity. They'll say I failed as a mother. The guilt she was wielding was familiar, like an old coat I used to wear every day. 10 years ago I had let it swallow me whole. Today it felt too tight, too scratchy, too wrong. I love her, I said. The words came out steady even though my hands were shaking under the table. I've loved her since college. I tried to stop for you. I tried for 10 years and it almost killed me. Mom's face crumpled for half a second before she caught herself. Love? This isn't love. This is rebellion. This is sin. The word sin hung between us like smoke. I stood up slowly. Then I guess I'm choosing sin. I walked upstairs to my old bedroom, still decorated with high school trophies and photos of prom with boys I never cared about, and started packing a suitcase. Mom didn't follow. When I came back down she was still at the table, staring at nothing. I paused at the door. I'm sorry I hurt you. But I can't keep hurting myself. She didn't answer. Outside, the October air felt sharper. I drove straight to the office, parked in my usual spot, and sat there for 10 minutes trying to stop crying. When I finally walked in, my boss gave me a strange look but said nothing. Zariah texted me at 9:17. Made it. Thinking of you. Coffee after work. I answered with a single heart emoji because I didn't trust my words yet. The day dragged. Every time my phone lit up it was family. Lauren sent a long paragraph about how selfish I was being. My cousin texted a Bible verse. Even Aunt Karen, who I hadn't spoken to since Christmas, called and left a voicemail that started with, "I'm praying for you, honey." Each message chipped away at the small brave thing I had done that morning. By lunch I was hiding in the bathroom stall, forehead against the cool metal door, wondering if I had just burned every bridge I had. Zariah found me after work in the parking garage. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug right there between the cars. "Come stay with me," she whispered into my hair. "As long as you need." That night we cooked pasta together in her tiny kitchen and didn't talk about my mother. We talked about the new campaign at work, about the concert we wanted to see next month, about nothing and everything. When we finally crawled into bed, she held me until the shaking stopped. "You're not alone anymore," she said. "Not this time." But alone was exactly how I felt when my phone rang at 2 a.m. Dad's name on the screen. I answered before I could talk myself out of it. "Felicity," he said, voice thick. "Your mother had a panic attack tonight. She's in the ER. They're keeping her overnight for observation." He paused. "She keeps saying this is her fault, that she should have seen it coming when you were in college." The guilt I thought I had buried came roaring back so fast I couldn't breathe. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. I stood outside room 312 clutching a paper cup of terrible coffee, Zariah beside me even though I had told her she didn't have to come. "I want to," she had said simply, and that was that. Dad met us in the hallway. His eyes were bloodshot, tie crooked from a long night. When he saw Zariah he stiffened for half a second before forcing a polite nod. "Thank you for coming," he said to her, then turned to me. "She's awake. She wants to see you. Alone." I glanced at Zariah. She gave me the smallest smile. "I'll be right here." Inside the room Mom looked smaller than I had ever seen her. For in her arm, hospital gown too big, hair flat against the pillow. She turned her head when I entered and for a moment neither of us spoke. "You came," she said finally. "Of course I came." She stared at the ceiling. "I keep replaying yesterday in my head. The way you looked at her like she was the only thing in the world. I used to look at your father that way." A bitter laugh escaped. "Before life got complicated." I sat on the edge of the bed. "Mom, what happened in college?" "I knew," she cut me off. "I knew the day I found those letters. I told myself if I just pushed hard enough you'd forget her. I thought I was protecting you." Her voice cracked. "But I was protecting myself. From what the neighbors would say. From what the ladies at Bible study would whisper." I reached for her hand but she pulled it away. "Don't. Not yet." The silence stretched. "I'm not asking you to choose me over her," she said at last. "I'm asking you to choose wisely, because once you walk this road there's no going back. People will look at you differently. They'll look at me differently." "I know," I whispered. "But I've already lived 10 years looking at myself differently every morning in the mirror. I can't do it anymore." She closed her eyes. A single tear slipped down her temple. "Then I guess we both lose." When I left the room Dad was waiting. Zariah stood a respectful distance away, pretending to study a vending machine. Dad pulled me into a hug that smelled like Old Spice and hospital soap. "Give her time," he murmured. "She loves you. She just doesn't know how to love this version of you yet." Zariah and I drove home in silence. Halfway there she said, "Your dad seems okay. He's trying." She nodded. "And you?" "I don't know." That afternoon the family group chat turned into a battlefield. Lauren posted a long message about protecting the family unit. My uncle replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Someone I hadn't spoken to since high school sent me a private message asking if it was just a phase. Each notification felt like another stone stacked on my chest. Zariah took my phone and turned it off. "Tonight it's just us. No one else gets in." We ordered Thai food and watched an old movie neither of us really followed. Halfway through she paused it and turned to me. "Remember the night we broke up?" I nodded. "I drove around for hours after you left. Ended up at that same park. Sat under our tree until sunrise. I kept thinking if I just waited long enough you'd change your mind." She traced a finger along my jaw. "I waited 10 years, Flick. I'm not waiting anymore. But I need you to fight for us too." I kissed her then, slow, deliberate, the kind of kiss that said everything words couldn't. When we pulled apart, I rested my forehead against hers. I'm fighting. Starting now. The next morning I woke to a text from Mom. 3 words. Come home. Talk. The house looked the same: white siding, blue shutters, the maple tree in the front yard just starting to turn red. But walking up the steps felt like approaching a minefield. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She looked smaller, older, like the hospital had taken something from her. We sat at the kitchen table again. The crack in the tile had been swept up. Only a faint scar remained. She pushed a mug of tea toward me. Chamomile, the kind she used to make when I was sick. I've been thinking, she started, about the day you left for college. You were so excited. I remember standing on the porch waving until your car disappeared. I told your father that night I was scared I'd lose you. She gave a sad smile. I just didn't know it would happen like this. Mom. Let me finish. She took a shaky breath. When I found those letters, I panicked. Your father had just been diagnosed with high blood pressure. The church was doing that purity series. Everyone kept asking when you were going to bring home a nice boy. I thought if I could just make it go away, everything would be fine. I stared at my hands. It didn't go away. No, it didn't. She reached across the table this time and covered my fingers with hers. Her skin felt paper thin. I'm not saying I understand. I'm not even saying I accept it yet. But I'm saying I don't want to lose my daughter. Tears burned behind my eyes. You won't. Not if you stop making me choose. She nodded once, slow. Your sister is still angry. The prayer group has been calling. I told them it's a private family matter. A pause. But I can't control what people say. I know. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally she stood and pulled me into a hug that felt like surrender. Bring her to dinner next Sunday. Just give me time to get used to the idea. I held her tighter than I had in years. Thank you. When I told Zariah later, she didn't whoop or cry. She just smiled that quiet smile and said, one Sunday at a time. But the week that followed proved Mom's warning right. At work, 2 coworkers suddenly stopped inviting me to lunch. Lauren refused to answer my calls. The church bulletin somehow listed my name under prayer requests for guidance. Every small slight chipped away at the fragile peace I thought we had reached. Zariah noticed. She started leaving little notes in my lunch bag. Inside jokes from college, song lyrics, reminders that I was loved. One night after a particularly brutal family text thread, she ran me a bath and sat on the edge of the tub reading me chapters from a book we both loved in school. You don't have to carry this alone, she whispered. I sank deeper into the water and let myself believe her. Sunday dinner arrived like a storm cloud. I picked Zariah up at 6. She wore the navy sweater I loved and carried a bottle of sparkling cider. Non-alcoholic because she remembered Mom didn't drink. Ready? She asked. No. But we're going anyway. Dad greeted us at the door with an awkward handshake for Zariah and a tight hug for me. Lauren sat at the table already, arms crossed. Mom moved around the kitchen like a ghost, setting out roast chicken and mashed potatoes with mechanical precision. The first 10 minutes were excruciating small talk about the weather. Then Lauren spoke. So, how long has this been going on behind our backs? Zariah answered before I could. 6 months since we reconnected. But we loved each other 10 years ago too. Lauren's eyes narrowed. And you just decided to destroy our family now? That's enough, Dad said quietly. Mom set the gravy boat down hard. I invited Zariah because I'm trying. But I need everyone to try too. The rest of the meal passed in tense bites and forced conversation. When dessert came, Mom's famous apple pie, Lauren pushed her plate away. I can't do this. I can't sit here and pretend everything's fine while my sister throws away everything Mom and Dad taught us. She stood. Call me when you're ready to be normal again. The door slammed behind her. Mom's hands trembled as she cut the pie. She'll come around. But her voice said she wasn't sure. Later that night, Zariah and I lay in her bed staring at the ceiling. That could have gone worse, she offered. It could have gone better. She rolled onto her side to face me. You stood your ground. That's what matters. I traced the line of her collarbone. I keep thinking about the girl I was in college, the one who was too scared to fight. I don't want to be her anymore. You're not. She kissed me softly. You're the woman who chose love, even when it cost her everything. That's the version I fell in love with twice. The next morning I woke to a voicemail from Lauren. I'm sorry, I stormed out. I'm still mad, but I miss you. Call me when you can. Small cracks of light were starting to appear in the dark. But the community wasn't done. At the grocery store, two women from church stared openly. At the gym, a trainer I used to like suddenly became too busy to spot me. Each time Zariah was there, holding my hand in the produce aisle, cheering me on during squats, reminding me I was more than their whispers. 3 months later, the leaves had fallen and the first snow dusted the ground. Mom invited us over again, this time without Lauren, who still wasn't ready. We brought a poinsettia for the table. Mom accepted it with a small smile. It's pretty, she said. Like both of you. It wasn't much, but it was something. Dad pulled me aside while the women set the table. Your mother's been reading, he said quietly. Books from the library about families like yours. She doesn't say much, but she's trying. I hugged him so hard he laughed. After dinner, Zariah and I drove to the park where I had broken her heart a decade earlier. The same oak tree stood bare against the winter sky. We sat on the cold bench and she pulled a small velvet box from her coat pocket. I was going to wait until Christmas, she said, voice soft. But life's too short for more waiting. Inside was a simple silver ring with a tiny emerald, my birthstone. Felicity Thompson, will you keep choosing us every single day? Tears froze on my cheeks as I nodded. Yes. Every day. Twice if you want. We kissed under that tree like teenagers, snowflakes catching in our hair. When we pulled apart, I looked at her, really looked, and saw the girl I had lost and the woman I had found again. Back at her apartment, we curled up on the couch with hot cocoa. My phone buzzed once. Mom sending a photo of the poinsettia on her mantle with the caption, "It looks nice. Come by next weekend." I smiled and showed Zariah. One Sunday at a time, she reminded me. That night as she slept, I stared at the ring on my finger and thought about every version of myself. The scared college girl, the pretending daughter, the woman who finally chose truth. The cost had been high. The guilt still visited sometimes. The community still whispered. But the love? The love was worth every single scar. Was it worth it? True or false?